Now, there we go.
Wow.
80 kilobytes, 100 kilobytes. I feel like those guys that are measuring gold on one of those cable shows. 221 kilobytes. 290 kilobytes. Yeah. Anyway, 10 seconds of radio science news is already under our belt, and we haven't even spewed any science yet.
Spewing?
Spewing
That's
science.
a great term, yeah.
Spewing science for the masses.
I am going to do the spewing of the chunks of science.
Oh. That's too much to visualize there.
Yeah.
Get your drum kit out, lock it up. You let the maracas players get their last shakes in. You know, you want to make sure they.
Yep.
I'm going to actually
You
stop them.
got to do that.
I stopped them 2 seconds early, but that's okay. Hey, good morning,
That's
Robert
no
Strong.
Good morning, Mr. Richard Pollock. Hey, you folks out there in Radio Land or Radioville or wherever you're from,
Radio.
you are tuning into Radio Science News. This is episode number 844 in a series. I know, boggles the mind that we're still on the air. June 25th, 2022. If you are a prime number fan out there, you probably realize that any number that ends in a 4 is certainly not a prime. It's divisible by 2 and 2. And so the factors of 844 are 2, 2, and 211.
Wow, that's a good. I like that 211. That's nice.
I know, that's a big prime.
A big fry. That sounds like a burger at our local place. Get the big prime with cheese and fries. Big prime.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of meat.
Yeah, that's you might want to skip that. As I know that you are a vegetarian-oriented person. At least you lean that way, I guess.
I do lean that way. Yes, I have been a vegetarian style person since about 1978.
Yeah.
I try to not eat beefs. I try to not eat snakes.
No.
I try to not eat frogs and other assorted lizards, birds, which means a theropod, dinosaurs are out.
Yeah.
So
listen, that reminds me, but just a quick story on vegetarianism. I'm sure all the science people would appreciate this. I have a granddaughter whose mom and whose older sister is like a complete vegetarian, so she's always aware of this stuff. But she's always liked chicken nuggets. But she reached a point where they're ordering, they're talking about that stuff, and when they're ordering, and it was one of those moments of scientific epiphany, like when the apple hit Newton in the head and he discovered gravity supposedly. She said, wait, she says, are chicken nuggets made from chickens? And they all said,
maybe that's why they taste like chicken.
And they said to her, well, yes, they are. She was like freaked out she goes, oh no. So they went through the whole bunch of things, and she kind of agreed that she was going to, eliminate as much as possible. But she said, but I think I'm going to keep eating steak. So, one step forward, 2 steps back, Robert.
Not a bad idea. Okay.
And I'm just going to say she would forgive you for your comment on octopus brains, but we digress. Let's get to the launchpad of science. Why don't you get folks there, and I'll just wait while you navigate.
I shall navigate to the helm. Hey, if you go to my favorite webpage on the internet, which is www.smartcenter.org, SMARTCENTER.org, that will take you to the Smart Center opening webpage. And it's got lots of neat things about the International Space Station and some of our summer science camps, which we still have room.
Oh my goodness.
Girls Enjoying Math and Science Camp, July 11th through 12th. We still have some room. Contact us. That one is free, and your funds are provided by the Women's Giving Circle of the Community Foundation for the Ohio Valley.
That is such a wonderful thing that they're doing.
I love that.
I just
want to put that out, that if you're within driving distance of wheeling, and you have a girl, or you are a girl, between entering grades 5 through 8, you are eligible to come, and it's going to be a blast.
Oh, it is, and like as you said, it's a wonderful experience, and women in the Wheeling area who appreciate and support science, and especially girls in science, have stepped up and done a wonderful thing. So, yeah.
Yes, they have. And there's also a Fun with Physics camp, August 8th through 9th. Now, that is not funded by anyone. That's a self-funded. That's entering grades 3 through 7. And that is a 2-day camp that includes all snacks and meals and all kinds of stuff. And that's $60. So loads of fun.
Well,
our good friend Lee, one of the regional geologist, paleontologist, just walked in because we're going to do another one of our little science materials that some people have gently used, but they don't need currently in their classrooms. So we're going to give those out to parents and teachers and all kinds of stuff.
Oh yeah, stop by the Smart Center today, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah, there's going to be all kinds of nifty, fun stuff going on. So while you're on the Smart Center page, if you look just above the little trifecta rainbows that in triplicate say Radio Science News, if you click on that live link for Radio Science News, it'll take me. Ooh, wow! Boy, that just leaped right in there. I'm not used to our slow internet being fast here at Smart Center Market.
Oh, I've got fast internet here in Arizona. It's very fast, very fast.
That's very cool. Okay, hey, so we've got monkeypox.
Monkeypox. Well, no, wait, back that up. We don't have monkeypox. Don't start any rumors. Don't start any rumors, man. No
rumors.
First topic.
We do not have monkeypox, but we are going to talk about monkeypox
very quickly.
All right, and then of course there's hot times.
Hot times.
Yeah, it's definitely hot times.
Followed
wildfires and the ice ages. I see a theme here.
Well, there's a couple themes here. I got carried away, but too many topics. I got one of my animals. When I put the robotic bugs and the chippy in the middle, those are robot stories. I kicked our friendly little turtle, Fernando, the tortoise that we haven't talked about yet.
Don't get me singing Fernando.
And so that's up there too. I got a story about octopus brains, and if we can, we're going to get to the story about the toadlets and the bear genome and the tarantula galaxy and the optical microphone. Are you kidding me? An optical microphone. And we even have the cluster chart. Since I've moved my cursor, I have dragged my cursor all the way over to the right side.
And it's so heavy, it's hard to drag
the back, mass of that thing. Let's take a quick look at cluster chart. Now, when you first, people said, "Boy, I'll tell you what, this whole show is a cluster chart," is what people would say. Hey, back up.
Enunciate.
Now, I love this story because for folks who appreciate and love or even endure physics, this is a cool story. Physicists may have finally spotted the elusive clusters of 4 neutrons, the tetraneutrons. Now, of course,
are you kidding?
Well, so you look at this picture and you go, "Oh, that's one really lame chart." Apparently, it's like it's actually a toy that you and I kind of invented with ping pong balls.
Exactly. In fact, it's the same color, same size.
And you could spin this around, and lo and behold, it's an interesting thing because the mass causes it to turn over on its head. It's another whole story. Maybe it relates to this. I don't know. Who could say?
I don't know.
But this is the real chart is actually further down because. This is a deep in the weeds story, so I'm going to let you're going to have to peruse it a little bit because this is new to you. This is new to you. So if we start with the chart, I think it'll be more helpful.
All right, so you get a helium-8, which is
rare,
not a very stable thing.
Yeah.
And you hit that you hit the helium-8 into a target proton, which means
good. Yeah.
A hydrogen gas. an alpha particle comes out, which is very stable, but you're left with 4 neutrons.
Yeah, look at that.
Whoa. How long does this thing last?
Oh, I don't think it lasts as long as it does actually say down. It is very, 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 very short-lived.
I was going to say it can't last for very long because there's no protons to hold it together.
Right. Now it's really interesting because they do again. This is a bit deep in the weeds when they talk about how there were theoretical calculations and how it's in some ways a virtual particle, or it's actually they say that and as you mentioned, if the forces between neutrons were strong enough, to what they're creating is a tetraneutron resonance.
Right.
So, and that's a big deal because why that's important is that the physicists who did this say that certain types of atomic nuclei should exist that are known not to, so according to their theories. So this is really cool stuff. First of all, I was just cool to hear that there was helium-8. And I wonder if it would change the pitch of my voice in the balloon. I just helium-8. It would take you up an octave, but I don't know. And I mean, this is really they've been working on it again. If you take the time to read this and understand all the complex physics and stuff that's going on, it's just really neat. The idea that they first had to create. It says I love the way this is so easy. How would I do this as a science project, Mr. Strong? Well, it's easy. You just start with a beam of radioactive neutron-rich helium-8, which they created at the Riken laboratories in Japan, and slam them into a target proton. Yeah, a protein won't work.
Well, duh.
A protein wouldn't work at all. Protons are much better.
Yes.
So anyway,
I just went on Wikipedia to find out exactly what the half-life of helium-8 is, and I'm actually surprised. It's actually 0.1195 seconds.
Wow. So
it's just over a ninth of a second.
So you
that
literally
lasts longer than I would have thought. I would have thought that it would have been, millions of times shorter than that. So actually, all right. So this is a doable sort of a thing. That beam of helium-8 can be around long enough to actually aim at its stuff.
Well, that's the first part. Yeah. Then, gee.
Well, all right, because I was thinking, wait a minute.
Well, there's no question, and again, I'm going to say the obligatory last few paragraphs or sentences that point toward more grant money are definitely there because they mention that of course detecting neutrons which have no electric charge is difficult, and they didn't directly observe them. I mean, that's kind of it's one of those things where. As in the chart, because of the directionality, the axis of the beam, and they show that this 4-neutron, entity, even the tetraneutron resonance. Wow, I love that. I'm gonna have to put that on my list of new words to use at lunch. Have you folks been listening to the tetraneutron resonance scientists recently? Anyway.
Yes, I could just see you trying to squeeze that into any conversation. Yes.
Yeah. And again, the beauty of their discussion is that one of the researchers, Natalia Timofeyuk of the University of Surrey in Guildford, England, and I'm telling you, she probably said this with a charming British accent, but she says she says that the bump that they're looking at in this configuration could literally be sort of a memory of the arrangement of the neutrons as they were in the helium-8 nucleus before the alpha, the other one flew out. So that's
what an interesting phrase.
Yeah,
could be the memory.
The memory of neutrons retained from the original arrangement inside the helium-8 nucleus before before they slammed it. This is like they weren't wearing their seatbelts and they slammed into the target. I kind of remember where I was sitting. So anyway.
Yep, right through the subatomic windshield.
Well, I love it. So this is a cool little. This is a really neat physics story. I'm glad we I'm glad we got that out of the way first.
Wow. Yeah, that is some weird stuff. I mean, I love the fact that we're talking about something that may be a phantom of our imagination.
Yeah. Well,
but it, in a realistic sense, should exist, but you can't see it. So it's sort of a ghosty concept, right?
Well, but you know what? It's actually more tangible than a lot of the things people do. Because I could,
True.
I'm picturing, like when they mentioned that memory thing, I'm picturing, like the classic, sort of magician's trick or the Three Stooges comedy thing where they have a whole table full of dishes and glasses and things, and they pull the tablecloth out from under it.
Right.
And yet, because it's like there it is still in position because it has, well, in that case it had a certain type of inertia and all that, and we have to imagine there's some of that too. Anyway, it's an interesting story, and it's most interesting because, as they say, if they can further research this, and they made big steps in this one, they were able to, they thought, identify more than 30 or so incidences of what they felt was this tetraneutron, but it has implications for just like the kind of nuclei and things that might exist that we have yet to discover. So that's always cool.
Yeah, fascinating. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna do some triple backflips and get over to the other side. And we're just gonna, and I hate to even use this term, dare I say, we're gonna barely touch on monkeypox. I'm not gonna touch it. We're gonna look at it quickly.
Don't touch the monkeypox.
Yeah, I don't. Well, if you, oh, actually, this is a little story. I'm gonna let the video play.
Interested in a solar powered?
Yeah, there's some guy giving me a thing I get to skip in 1 second. All right, there we go.
All right, there we go.
Before, countries watching a health crisis unfold and then wondering if they will be next, and if so, what to do.
And if so,
it's much easier to stay out of trouble than it is to have to get out of trouble.
A great statement.
On Thursday, the World Health Organization met behind closed doors to determine if the monkeypox outbreak should be considered a public health emergency.
I'm watching the video.
Emergency does not mean a pandemic, but it's essentially saying we have to be put on alert and let's do something about it.
See, there's a
Part
great
of
idea.
the criteria WHO looks at is international spread. 3,000 cases in more than 50 countries have been recorded, hundreds in Canada and the US, and on Thursday, the first in South Korea. Its public health agency now pushing for vaccines and treatments. They do exist.
See, that's the cool thing
smallpox
here.
vaccines, but the rush to vaccinate is being met with criticism. This virus has been ravaging parts of Africa since the 1950s.
Wow.
We just haven't learned our lesson very well in terms of preventing pandemics, which is that you have to be able to attack these issues at their source before they become an issue globally.
Testing sites are now popping up globally, and there's a sense of urgency. Health experts say summer events, including Pride, could become a nexus for spread.
These events are powerful opportunities to engage with young, sexually active and highly mobile people.
Doctors point out much of the current focus is on harm reduction, a concept born during the HIV crisis to minimize impacts of the virus and assist the people involved. But they're urging fast action in vulnerable communities.
Actually vaccinate as PrEP, as pre-exposure prophylaxis, as preventing it. That's how we're going to stop it.
A declaration of a public health emergency could come in a matter of days.
Yeah,
Reggie Cicchini, Global News, Washington.
Thank you, Global News Washington. Yeah, they've been talking about
countries watching a health.
Hang on, there we go. I just click out of it. Yeah, so I'm just going to say one of the good things about that little story is they had some wonderful snippets of wisdom that, of course, should always apply to it. They're watching, and after COVID and some other things that we've endured, they are the World Health Organization, and I know in the United States they've already started preemptive vaccinations. As she said, the best thing to do is recognize it immediately and stop it at its source. So,
right.
Wow. Well, anyway,
good idea.
We'll follow that because as yet they haven't designated it as having moved into the more serious category, but they are watching closely. All right, well, let's click through. I'm going to click through some of these, and again, I want to make sure we get to the important stories like octopus brains and toadlets, but just a couple quick things like hot times. And I'm going to say that having driven through, I'm going to say, Robert, that if you drive, say, from Ventura, California, and you drive through the Arizona desert like Blythe, some of these sunny places where apparently at lunch yesterday it was 111 degrees at the Denny's. They didn't even have to use the griddle to cook up your veggie burger. It was no. This is an interesting story because, I mean, one of the issues, and they have a picture that shows this like really hot pink day, and they're actually mentioning Denver, Las Vegas, and Phoenix, Arizona, which is just, I could probably skip a rock to that from where I am right now.
Yeah.
The really interesting thing about this, and I think it certainly bears reading, because Wheeling, West Virginia, just recently, you were part of that big like high pressure heat bubble that covered
Yes.
and what was the hottest you got
dome.
while you were there? Do you recall?
It got 94, 95-ish.
That's actual
But
temperature.
it was also very humid.
Well, and that's a big difference. When they do the heat index stuff, of course, it's based on how much wind speed there is to like either remove
Right.
heat or it makes a big difference. And as you said, being in an area where the humidity is relatively low, 100 degrees is not really terrible. But
No.
if you're in temperatures in the upper 90s, and it just turns out that the humidity may also be, the humidity often can exceed the temperature back east in a place like West Virginia. So
Yes. Yes, it
it's very
can.
uncomfortable. Well, anyway, the long story short on this, and again, one of the things we always sort of caution folks about radio science news stories, if we were to take one story, we could probably, cover it in depth and really have an interesting conversation, but it would take a long time.
Yes, it
a
would.
lot of these stories I want to call to everybody's attention, and then you need, while you're maybe in your air-conditioned comfort or somewhere in a hot day, you're going to read through and get all the details. This is really about the fact that almost places like Arizona, California, or Nevada, where it gets, people, they have like places to go when it's dangerous and you can cool yourself. But the thing that they're understanding now is that most places have no concept or no plan about what to do in these situations.
Right.
And they're talking about among cities with most robust preparations for heat, they have things across the board, but they're just saying how important this is for everybody to, like in the city of Wheeling or someplace, not everybody has shelter from the sun. Not everybody has air conditioning.
No.
Not everybody has enough hydration, at a given time to cover this. So this is about cities planning for these chronic situations of extra heat that you don't typically get. Wow. So anyway, interesting story. And you wouldn't be surprised, Robert, that a story on hot times would be followed by a story on wildfires.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, of course,
That makes perfect sense to me.
well, it makes real sense to me because we're actually back here because of a wildfire history, and it's the thing that happened in the past. And we're actually in an area where the Yarnell fire of 2013 resulted in the death of the guys on the ground, the Granite Mountain hotshots. But this is, I could have put this on the chart. It might have made a better chart. If you get to this page, it's
Yes.
really talking about some like, for example, asthma-related deaths and emergency room visits that you can attribute to fire smoke. Now,
Yeah, so this says Western wildfires health risks extend across the country. Well, that makes sense because our winds usually go from west to east.
yeah,
So if there are wildfires on the West Coast, we're going to be breathing the smoke from those wildfires on the East Coast.
absolutely.
Right?
And
Yeah.
if you will gently scroll down to the lovely graph here, the wildfires
Oh, wow.
are primarily, now I'm assuming there may have been, it also looks like there may have been one in this. It's clear that there are on the border of California, and
Yes.
actually this one wildfire, if you're looking at California,
Yes.
the one of them is the one that endangered the giant sequoias. You can see in the I think the one that they're showing in the sort of upper northeast part of the state of
Yep.
California, that is actually that fire, because we were in Sequoia National Park and saw, we're looking at the damage, which was extensive, and we talked about last week the controlled burns, but July 21st, 2021, that was really one of them. So you say, oh sure, I see all this dense smoke in these places, but if you look across, as you well know, we probably didn't have any giant wildfires in Pennsylvania into New Jersey, New York, and across Kentucky and into like Charleston, West Virginia. And I think the one in the southeast may have been a fire too. But this is the actual definition that they're looking at when we talk about asthma problems. Is they call it PM 2.5. Those are bits of, I love this, bits of ash, gas, and detritus suspended in smoke that are no more than 2.5 micrometers wide, small enough to lodge in the lungs and cause permanent damage.
Right.
Wow,
Permanent.
Because it's
permanent. That's
a long time.
That's a word that we need to understand.
Yeah.
Because if you get stuff lodged in your lungs and it's permanently there, it's not going to go away. It's not going to improve.
Yeah. This is some of the stuff they talk about with diesel smoke and all that, diesel, exhaust and all that.
Right.
But 2.5. And here's the thing: it's in that sweet spot. You're actually talking about a solid chunk of something, like they're talking about ash or detritus, carbonized plant materials. But at that 2.5 micrometers, it can be suspended. That's the whole thing. It's able to stay suspended in the atmosphere.
Certainly.
And if you look at this chart, we're looking at it's amazing that some of the particulate matter in the Pennsylvania, that area, is almost as bad as in the originating sites, because in those sites it goes up and leaves. But because of the wind patterns and everything, it may actually concentrate in other places. So, interesting.
Wow.
It also goes to as you've always said, things can be hundreds of thousands of kilometers away from the fire, but you could be suffering, say in Philadelphia, from really bad conditions that would exacerbate if you have asthma or any other related breathing thing. So,
well, and see what you've got to also understand is that as you just said, it's not just the PM 2.5 particles from the wildfire smoke. It's also the PM 2.5 exhaust that's emitted by cars.
Exactly.
And so when you combine those two, that's one of the reasons why the East Coast has a great deal of these things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is. Al Gore might have even said you have a tipping point when you have fires and things like that occurring, and I hesitate to say naturally occurring, because there could be some other reasons involved there. Well, to cool those wildfires, we're going to look quickly at a story about some scientists right in my neighborhood. I'm right here in close to the University of Arizona, and this is a cool. It's again, as I point out, take the time to read this, but the gist of it is the folks who've been looking at the ice ages, and there are even arguments about what caused the ice age, and we were laughing last week about the fact that there was a point not too long ago when we were everybody was saying, well, we're heading into the next ice age and get ready for it, instead of global warming or global climate change that seems to be warming. This goes back to something you were mentioning about the solstice and the tilt of the sun. And while it's widely been accepted that periodic wobbling in the Earth's orbit around the sun triggered widespread glaciation, they're struggling. This was part of the struggle was, how in the world do you explain the fact that you had huge ice buildup over the North American continent and Canada, but Scandinavia remained, clear. So, like I said, they're setting this up with kind of a very, very discrete thing that they were looking at, and it relates to something I think that we have seen on Radio Science News 4 or 5 times, in the past years, where they talk about the ocean, the circulating ocean currents, and how much effect that has on things. So the cool thing about this is they've done some more studies. They're looking at a scenario. If you scroll way down, you'll find it, but I'm going to just read a little bit to you. It says, in an experiment, the researchers simulated a previously unexplored scenario in which the marine ice sheets, which were building up in the Canadian Arctic archipelago, it says these obstructed the waterways in that area. And so what they're talking about, the water which typically would have gone through a certain place was diverted to the east of Greenland, where the deep water masses typically form, and that led to fresh water and a change in the deep circulation of the North Atlantic, currents. So, they're kind of looking at the fact, oh, wait a minute, this ice buildup in Canada, it meant that the water which goes to its normal position as the fresh water is spilling off, I'm saying picture like the St. Lawrence Seaway or something, it actually went east of Greenland, which means that it changed that whole circulatory system, which is really cool. And when you read through it, you see all these other things where they studied sedimentation and all kinds of. And the neatest thing is, for people who study this, they know the Younger Dryas period that happened about 11,000 years ago. It says it's very possible that the mechanism they're talking about actually may explain some of these more short-lived cold periods, such as the Younger Dryas cold reversal, 12,900 to 11,700 years ago. So that's
so we're talking about not necessarily a tilt of the Earth cause, but we're talking about that the surface of the ocean can if it has an ice sheet on it, can direct the currents.
Yeah, and redirect
that could cause the ice ages.
Yeah, and basically it's just kind of like they're saying, there was a diversion because of the buildup of ice that then sent the fresh water, which would normally be in a different direction, to change the salinity of those those areas where that whole cycle works, that conveyor belt.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, it is cool, and again, these are serious things. Now, Robert, I promised you probably 2 weeks in a row that we would talk about your friend in the Galapagos, Fernanda.
Okay. Oh, Hernando.
Oh, yes. It says this, and of course they named this because it's Fernandina Island. So they named this. It says there, if you scroll, you'll see a picture, and I'm not sure. Oh, this is they actually have a picture of course, if you're talking about the Fernandina giant tortoise, I think Fernanda, and I'm assuming that means it's a female tortoise.
Yes, and it's the only known living Fernandina giant tortoise. Now lives at the Galapagos National Park Giant Tortoise Breeding Center on Santa Cruz Island. Now, I have been there with my wonderful wife.
That's right.
It is a fabulous place. If you ever get an opportunity to go to the Galapagos, one of the places that the tour guides will probably take you is to the Galapagos National Park Giant Tortoise Breeding Center on Santa Cruz Island. It's one of the few towns, and it's not even a large town, but it's a fantastic place. It's really neat. We when we were there in 2006, we were able to see Lonesome George.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and Lonesome George, I believe, is now gone.
Yeah, I think
but this is another giant tortoise, the last of her kind, and I'm sure that DNA samples were taken from Lonesome George. I'm sure that DNA samples will be taken from this giant tortoise, and someday I'm sure that they would hope to bring these back.
Yeah. Okay, and they do mention that there are actually they compared genomes for 13 species, 3 individuals from each, and the results show that the 2 known Fernandina tortoises are from the same lineage and distinct from all the others. So they have 2, but they didn't mention whether one was a male. Anyway.
Oh, okay.
the thing they are hopeful is they think that there are more. It says as soon as they can identify more of these genetically distinct Fernandino, the breeding program will then begin. And at this point, they at least have protected, and they have Fernanda in the center there. That's really cool.
Good. Yes, it says encouragingly, recent signs, i.e. tracks and scat, of at least 2 to 3 other individuals were found during other expeditions on the island.
Well, this is good, yeah.
That is encouraging. So if they can start a breeding program, and that's what this wonderful place is, it's a giant tortoise breeding center. So if they can start this again, they can get the eggs. They can make some small tortoises and take them back to these areas.
Yeah, repopulate.
Yes, that's a great idea.
So good. Fernanda. Now, Robert, I know this is going to creep you out again, but we're going to talk about a couple of robots. The first one, this one is really actually, I don't know, it's kind of fun and charming. I just have it as Robo Bugs there on the next link on the.
Okay.
And again, I let folks know that if you're on the radiosciencenews.org website, which you need to be if you're going to follow these links, it makes it so much nicer when you know where these stories are and you can peruse them with us or in your own spare time. But Robo Bugs is about robotic lightning bugs that take flight. Oh my gosh. Inspired by
these are inspired by fireflies.
Yeah.
So researchers create insect-scale robots that can emit light when they fly, which enables motion tracking and communication. So people are not trying to confuse the existing fireflies.
No.
These are just so that you can watch them go.
Well, I'm going to say this story has so many things. And now initially I was going, oh, wow, so it's about fireflies that light up and, all kinds of interesting stuff. And, of course, you would imagine immediately, Robert, that if they could light up and send out signals and, there's all kinds of, the ability to emit light brings these micro-scale robots, which weigh about a paperclip. The idea is that they're going to fly and deliver information. It's almost like a Stephen King story. I'm scrolling through all the story is really great. I like, for example, I love this thing where a new type of they call this a soft actuator, artificial muscles. It says these durable actuators are made by alternating ultra-thin layers of an elastomer, flexible plastic, and carbon nanotube electrodes in a stack, then rolling them up into a cylinder. Okay, now you're picturing that's I'm thinking like a jelly roll or something.
I'm reading along with the place that you're at. It says rolling it into a squishy
cylinder, right? And then
an interesting idea.
Well, so here's the cool part. So now they have carbon nanotubes. It says when a voltage is applied, the electrodes squeeze the elastomer, and the mechanical strain flaps the wings. Okay, so I'm thinking this is also cool. What does it look like? So I'm going to call attention to everybody's. The thing that got crazy is they ended up mixing, like it says, mixing zinc particles because they wanted it to emit light. And you're thinking these guys are doing too many things. But if you scroll down, if you scroll all the way down, there's a video. Now, when you see the video, I'm gonna click on it. I think it doesn't. I don't think it has narration, but I will read. So it's about a minute. It says music playing, inspired by fireflies. They show a picture of the little tiny things, and they show them with, of course, MIT. These guys showing off their branding, right? It says it can emit light when it flies. Now they show the actual little rolled up tube, and then they show this tiny little thing, and its wings are flapping. But that's not the only cool thing.
Oh, this is so cool.
Yeah, they incorporate electroluminescent zinc sulfate particles. Now, this thing is actually flying around. Now, you notice that it has multiple colors. And here's a slow motion. Now, presently, they show it as a tethered, it has these tiny, tiny little, wires that they're tethering it, lifting it up. And of course, beautiful charts. The thing, it says they could actually communicate with each other because of their electroluminescence. And
so you can have a swarm of these things.
Yeah, and again, that's what reminded me of the like I think either a Stephen King or some novel about the nanobots and all that kind of stuff.
I believe that it was actually called Swarm.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, it was by the same guy that did the Jurassic Park book.
Yes. Oh gosh. Yeah. He later became kind of a little bit. he later argued against global climate change, I think, but that's okay.
Yes. I don't know what that was all about.
We'll mention it. That's right. Swarm.
Yeah. So and it would not surprise me if these were not inspired by that book.
Oh, I'm sure they probably were. Because, but the part that's so amazing is that, I mean, the first thing I look at is, okay, cool, they have electroluminescence. That means, like it says, you could turn the light on and off during flights and communicate. Because, as they said, fireflies, if you were familiar with, in our little lovely part of the world in June or maybe late May, you'll have what people will go out and they'll see lightning bugs. And they have little signals because they're signaling each other. It's like they're sending out, little digital invitations, for mating parties and things like that. But the thing that just struck me was, as we've often talked about, I know that one time I was explaining to someone that if you have a red flashlight and a blue flashlight and you cross the beams, well, first of all, it won't explode because it's not a laser sword. But the fact that they can have multiple colors as they demonstrate means that you have multiple bands of communications, So it enhances your. It's not just like Morse code where you're going ... dash ... You could have several, as they say, multicolored signals. That means you can send a ton more information. So, very cool. All right, I'm going to scroll back.
Very cool.
I'm going to, of course, now this next robot. The only reason.
I just wanted to say that a couple days ago, I ran across an article that said that if you're fond of fireflies, and we all are, that you need to keep your lawn grass length higher than most people do. It turns out that if your grass is much lower than about 3 inches, you will not get fireflies. Wow. You need your grass to be a minimum of 4 to 5 inches during firefly season.
And I'm also going to say, be responsible. Cut your grass as least amount of time possible. That's what I explained.
Exactly.
I explained that to my wife. Well, yeah, I'm going to cut it this week. No, the thing I do, and we haven't talked about this, but I pretty much use all electric lawn mowing equipment. And the thing is, sometimes people try to cut their grass like I guess so they could practice their golf strokes out. Where it's like but this isn't. You'll get this mathematically, Robert. I know you will. If I have grass that's only 1 inch tall, right, and I cut it off at that, I cut it at 1 inch to get that really, groomed look. Do you know it really doesn't look much difference than if I let it grow like 3.5 or 4 inches tall and I cut it off, and your lawnmower actually doesn't bog down or get, destroyed.
That's true.
It turns out that if you're looking at a plain surface, like if you're looking at your lawn and it's neat and clean at 4 inches, it looks just as good as when it's neat and clean at 1 inch. Or actually, it looks better. I
know.
Because it's actually green. So I just wanted to mention that. That's a little tip for you, amateur agronomists out there. Hey, this next story is another robot. I only mentioned this robot because I kept seeing these commercials. I'm going, what is the point of this? And it was about Flippy. Are you familiar with Flippy? Flippy, not
no.
Flipper. Flipper, of course, would be a charming thing. It's the company, and it's by MISO. Miso, which makes you think, is this like a like miso soup from the Eastern cultures? Miso Robotics. They've had all these commercials for Flippy because what he'll do is he'll do your French fries. Flippy will do all your French fries, and it's a robotic thing that now is being deployed. It's being deployed in restaurants because you know what, Robert? It's just so great. It'll replace an employee, and you can install.
No, it will probably replace 2 or 3 employees because the thing is, if you have a 24-hour food service area,
there's 3 shifts right there.
Those employees only work for 8-hour shifts.
Yeah.
So this could replace 3 full-time employees.
Oh, wouldn't that be wonderful? And of course, the weird thing is, of course, they cost.
Great idea, right?
Except they cost like, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, the idea is that it lasts long enough so that you can keep people unemployed for even longer. That's really.
Wow.
I'm just, you may detect that I'm not that excited about it. But the reason why this story was interesting as I looked it up was, of course, Flippy. Flippy's been deployed in a bunch of places to make the French fries, right?
Right.
And that's just fabulous because it can even mix seasonings. And then, you can get exactly the same thing every time, Robert, which is, what people really want. But when I went to this, it was actually that they are unveiling their newest fabulous robot. And of course, being brilliant marketing people, they named the new one not Flippy for fries, but Chippy because it makes tortilla chips.
Oh.
And guess what? Chipotle, I will call them Chipotle, but it's Chipotle, unveils a robot, and I have a little video. If you want to watch it, it's kind of, I'm thinking, the thing that makes things, we were talking about being in say, in an area like California or Arizona, New Mexico, and the thing that's so wonderful is like there are places where people make wonderful, Southwestern food, and one of the places that was so cool is where you would have people sitting there with they're actually making tortillas right in front of you,
Right in front of you, I know.
A nice little lady she's patting them out, and then they have, a wood-fired thing, and it smells good, and they know the right temperature, they put it on, and they watch it, and then you get these like fresh-made tortillas, and it's such a wonderful thing. But see, with Chippy...
And every place makes their own. And every place uses a slightly different spice too, right?
Well, and that's the point. So the thing is...
Exactly.
You would go, or even they would say, do you want yours, like, say if I'm in Denny's and I'm getting... like fried potato. I say, hey, could you make them extra crispy? Well, I don't think Chippy will do that for you. I'm just
probably not. No.
And they have to keep making them. I'm thinking, well, just put them in a bag and seal them up and call them Doritos, and you're all set. Oh, I digress, though. Anyway, enough. I should quit picking on the robots. They're going to hear about this, Robert. They're probably tracking us right now. We certainly will. Well, let's see. Oh man, I can't believe I'm not going to get through all my stories. I'll tell you what, we should maybe, I'll tell you what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to maybe save octopus brains, toadlets, bears, all these things. We're going to take a quick look at T Magnifica. Now, T Magnifica. Now, that almost sounds like it's a T-shirt shop down on the Malibu beach where you can get really magnificent T-shirts. But I would be wrong if I were to tell you that. It is actually about the biggest bacteria.
It says this giant bacterium is the largest one found yet.
Oh my God!
It measures 1 centimeter long.
The heck you say? No, yeah. In fact, if you look down there there's a piece of coinage.
Yeah, that looks to be a dime.
I'm reading it backwards, but it says 1 dime. Either that or it says Ewid Eno. Ewid Eno. It's a coin from some place I've never been. No, it's 1 dime. And this is this is an interesting name. Thio Margarita. Again, it sounds like a drink from the Southwestern. Thio Margarita Magnifica. Now, this is really a neat story because, first of all, it's a little scary. Now, it is nice to know that there is a bacteria that you can actually see with the naked eye. That's pretty crazy.
Right. Very crazy.
Scroll down there. It's roughly 1 centimeter long. And when people say, how long is that? Look what that paragraph says, Robert. Roughly the size and shape.
Of a human eyelash.
Wow. And then some of them max out.
And it's a bacterium.
Yeah. Now, if you look at it, I think there's another image of it. Maybe no, that's the. When you're looking at it, first of all, I'm looking at you can see, especially above the D there in the dime.
Yeah.
There you can see, if you look up, it reminds you of I'm thinking of like streptococcus or something. It's like connected, but wow.
So this is a single a bacterium, not a bacterium chain.
No, it's they're saying it's a It says, what's more, the genetic material of the bacteria floats freely inside the cell. T. magnifica packs its DNA inside a sac surrounded by a membrane. Such a compartment is a hallmark of the larger, more complex cells of eukaryotes, it's a group of organisms that includes. So this is almost, in some ways, you're thinking like a transitional creature here.
Yeah. So is is this a missing link kind of a thing?
Well, they're saying that it does. It grows. This is growing like in the mangrove forest. So like you would be thinking, like the coast would say down in New Orleans or along Florida. It says it's still unclear why it evolved, but it says that
why it grows so large.
Well, it says that being as large may help it access both oxygen and sulfide, which it uses. So it metabolizes oxygen and sulfide among. But they were saying that previously they thought that the bacterial cell, since it lacked complexity, meant that there was a limit to how large it can grow. But it says this one is like breaking the way we think about bacteria. So this is kind of a cool thing. Because you think small and simple, yeah.
Yeah, I was just reading. It says, where did I see that? Oh, it says that it's about 50 times the size of other giant bacteria and 5,000 times the size of most other average-sized bacterial species.
Yeah, this is
so
really...
whatever is going on here has made this thing superbly gigantic.
And also the fact that it contains its. I'm looking down below at a citation. It's talking about that it's a metabolically active membrane-bound organelle that contains the DNA. So as they said, there's like a sac that contains this. And I'm going to have to say the part that's really cool is that all of a sudden these microbiologists, it says that we've missed a lot of these because we're always thinking small and simple. And he goes, it's a bit like thinking the largest animals that exist would be a frog and then finding that we're elephants, This is really cool.
That is.
2 centimeter long bacteria. That's really... I think we're going to get to more stories than I thought. I'm optimistic now. Okay, so... octopus brains, which Robert, now I know that you
octopus brains.
You were joking about these little octopus brains and how delicious they are in your Oriental restaurant, which is not true. Nobody ever serves them, but it would turn. The reason why this is such a cool story is because people have often, and I think you and I have talked about stories where an octopus can be so intelligent it will sneak out of its tank and crawl across the floor up into another tank and eat a fish and then go back and the next morning they're like, who stole the fish, right? It literally has extremely complex cognitive abilities and a very an exceptional brain basically. The thing that is so cool about this is they're finding that they're looking at the genomic makeup of the octopus, and it appears that a lot of the human brain and at least 2 of the octopus, the common and the California octopus, have what they call jumping genes or transposons. So these are other cool words that you can use at lunch, jumping genes and transposons. But the part of the story, again, I ask you folks to read this and really, suss out all the other good material. But the thing that's really, because they go into the deep in the weeds, think about the type of transposons and the whole concept of jumping genes. But the long story short here is you have something that is, okay, let's assume that humans are smart. I mean, will you be willing to assume that sort of for the sake of argument?
Some could be confused as being smart, yes.
Yeah, and so the thing is, we are humans like a lot of mammals. No, we're vertebrates. We have like these backbones and our neurals, When you look at something that's very, very different, like an octopus, which is an invertebrate, it's like squishy and soft and can sneak into places because it doesn't have a bunch of bones to worry about. The thing that is so cool about this story is it says that the similarity between 2 very, very different things. It says here the similarity between man and octopus shows the activity, and they're talking about the line element in the area, because the octopus has something that's similar to our hypothalamus and all this kind of stuff. It's explained as an example of, this is a cool term, convergent evolution, which means that a particular, say, skill or characteristic can emerge in two genetically distant species. And in this case, they're saying the same molecular processes develop independently in response to similar needs. It actually, this reminds me, I just happened to be watching, I think I failed to mention, I was so excited because we were someplace where they actually had Science Channel on the cable, in a hotel. Usually it's just like 5 different news channels and 400 sports channels, but the story that I happened to notice, they were talking about, and Robert, you've seen this so many times. Of course, it's the ancient aliens who gave the information on how to build pyramids to people both in Egypt and in South America. That's the.
Of course.
And if so, then that's the. But they did a wonderful thing showing that, of course, the reason why these folks developed these things independently and didn't necessarily have to have transmitted it, one to the other, especially with an alien courier involved, was because of what they're talking about here. People in a similar situation, say where you're on the planet Earth and you have stars and you have solstice and all those kind of things like that, and you have building materials, and then you have developed the idea of having maybe like a brick, like a square 3-dimensional XYZ. Their point was, it was perfectly normal to have developed pyramids on the delta of the Nile River and have the similar pyramids somewhere in the jungles of the Amazon. It made perfect sense, and that's kind of what they're talking about here.
Right.
So
yes, if you have bricks, you are going to build things, and the easiest way to do it is to make a large, pointy a pile of bricks.
And it might even be like square, because you could it might be square, and then you would go, oh, we got to make it smaller as we go up, and it could end up looking like a pyramid. I just say.
Yes.
Oh,
exactly.
I am so excited because I realize we are going to get to look at the little toadlets today.
Oh, good. Okay.
I'm now going to not only toadlets, Robert. These aren't merely toadlets. These are. Pumpkin, they've been putting pumpkin in everything. Why not toadlets? You get pumpkin coffee, pumpkin, muffins. But look at this. Look at this little critter.
What a cute thing.
Oh.
It says, here's why pumpkin toadlets are such clumsy jumpers.
Wow.
Tiny inner ear canals may make it hard for the frogs to orient themselves in space.
Oh,
if you're having trouble orienting your place in space, you're going to have a hard time jumping well.
You're not going to be able to. Because one of the things about all these little critters, when they're talking about small toads and things, when they jump, they're at the mercy of, say, air current, but they want to land. It's nice to land, if you can, land on your feet. Now, the other thing I'm going to point out to these brilliant scientists, too, okay, I like your inner ear canal thing, but you may notice that their feet don't look like they're the most accurately designed for taking.
No, they do not.
I'm not going to criticize the scientists. They do. So, besides having these, what a cool looking. It almost looks like a Tesla pickup truck. I don't know.
How big are these?
They seem. I mean, the picture doesn't look. I don't know if it has a scale. They are very tiny. But it says here, I mean, this is rude to say. After launching, they careen through the air as if flung from a toddler's fist. They roll, cartwheel, or backflip, and then plummet to the ground. Often seen belly flopping or crash landing on their backs, which incidentally they have evolved into
if they are small, then this isn't going to hurt them, right?
Yeah, not much. Now there's actually a video. Let me see how long this little video is. Oh, it's 15 seconds. I can. Oh, wait,
okay, go for it.
Oh, look at him. That's so sad. I shouldn't laugh at this little toadlet. But listen, the good news is that they have evolved a structure on their back that really protects them. So
good.
Well, anyway, listen, and they are really cute. I see I'm going to have to start the music here in a second. But while I'm anticipating the start of my music, we're going to take a look at this bear story, and this may be all we can get to with my 1 minute left. I'm going to start the music.
All right.
And we'll talk about.
Go for it.
Oh, let me talk to the musicians. Hey guys, take it down. There we go. They don't mind. They're. I'm not going to say they're union musicians. They might be Confederate musicians. I'm not sure. But this is a really cool story, and I find this interesting because as we travel through the High Sierra or the like the area where Sequoia National Park was. One of the things they're talking about was how many bears there were. There are lots and lots of bears, and they're black bears and brown bears. The cool thing about this story is they have found fossil material, and they have sequenced the genome of a 100,000-year-old polar bear.
Wow.
And they show it getting ready to dive, and he's going, where's the ice? Maybe it was one of those times. But the interesting story about this is, I run out of time and get ready to click off, is that having studied the genome, we're linking all the bears kind of together.